there, I'm Jordan Hillary with the Daily National, and today we're talking about what your online data is worth to you. You may or may not know there's lots of advertising companies out there tracking your online behavior so that brands and advertisers can target ads to the right people. This means that you're automatically being tracked online and that other companies are making money off of your data. Today we're here with Adam Liebson, founder of Voyurl, a new platform that gives consumers more awareness over their own data. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to jump in and just understand, why did you start Voyurl?
Voyurl was started because I worked in the marketing and advertising industry for about 7 years, 8 years really. And in doing so, I learned that there was a lot of weird stuff going on with our data in the background that we weren't aware of as users. How our behavioral data is tracked, how our paths around the internet are tracked, even the actions that we take within some of our favorite social networks. Everything's being tracked and collected. And it's being done so without our permission. It's being done so without our awareness. And when money's being made on that data, we're also not aware of the transactions that happen. That create this revenue and this profit for a lot of different companies. And when these third parties started to realize how much value there was in this data, they went kind of hog wild. And as a result, they started taking more advantage of more people. And they started to grab as much data as they could across as many platforms and as many means as possible. And this sort of started this crazy land grab, and it also encouraged a bit of an ethical gray area in terms of the behavior used to get that data. And I started thinking about my friends. I started thinking about my family. Of course, I was very aware of this because it was in the wheelhouse of what I was doing as a strategist in digital advertising. But I realized that a lot of my folks and my friends didn't know this. And I thought it was unfair. And I thought it was abusing trust that people put in the platforms they use. And I think it was taking advantage of people, frankly. So Voyurl was started as a reaction to this knowledge and to the fact that we think that there's a better way to handle personal data online. And so we just started a platform that would create a transparent relationship around data and hopefully empower everybody through it and not just one side.
Well, speaking of that one side, there's definitely a status quo currently in place where advertisers, big brands seem to be fine with the fact that other companies are making money off of consumers and tracking the consumer behavior online. What do you think would be in it for the brands or the big advertisers if something like Voyurl were to get really big and kind of break up that status quo?
Right. So I think it starts a little bit with trust, actually. And right now, when folks understand that they're being tracked, they have a knee-jerk reaction and freak out. They understand that there's value in their data, but maybe they're not quite clear what that value is. They also understand that the brands that are advertising or marketing to them are part of the culprit. And so they begin to dislike these brands. Maybe they don't dislike them as a whole, but they don't like this behavior. And it's leaving a bad impression. It's forming a very tricky relationship between brand and consumer, or marketer and consumer. So I think if Voyurl is able to reach mass, knock on wood, what it'll start to do is actually make consumers and brands sort of meet halfway. And so there's a little bit of mutual respect happening. There's control and awareness of data happening. And so the exchange is much friendlier. And there isn't the hesitation of, maybe I shouldn't give my data, or shouldn't click here, or shouldn't join this object or this network, or I shouldn't give them access to my Facebook account because I don't know what they're going to do with it. Whereas through Voyurl, what we want to be able to do is make sure that as a user or a member, you actually have complete awareness and control over where your data is going and to whom it's going to. So that's one thing. So everyone feels a little bit better. The other is trust. It might be naive, it might be a bit noble, but we at Voyurl believe that if we don't build trust into the products we release online, we're creating a very dire situation in the long run. And part of that comes from the hesitation I was discussing just previously. But if people don't trust the platforms and the brands that are online, then they understand that they're scared of that. They don't want their data being tracked. They'll pull back. And if they pull back, they won't use things as much, especially online. And if they're not using the platforms that we thought they'd love online, or they're not traveling to the sites that we were tracking them on or anything like that, we start to lose that volume of valuable data. And if we lose that volume of valuable data, suddenly the things that we want to build on the back of it, whether it's for marketing or whether it's for actually utility, it's a good service, it's a good product, whatever it happens to be, they always require data. And if we have less of it, those products cannot be as good. And if they can't be as good, then we're actually sort of building this downward spiral of actually a less productive, a less enhanced connected world. And so part of our mission with Voyurl is actually building that trust into our product. We want you to know exactly what's happening with your data, how it might or might not find its way to brands only with your control and your permission. And by doing so, make you more comfortable with exploring the web, using the web, and sort of going full steam ahead.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up the product side, because I think a lot of time people hear advertising and they're thinking, only of marketing, but that product development point is a really great point for advertisers and brands. I just want to talk about the flip side of that a little, because it seems like Voyurl could actually bring a lot of value to the consumer, or help the advertiser bring a lot of value to the consumer. Can you talk a little bit about the consumer benefit of Voyurl?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why we built this in the first place. This is first and foremost a consumer product. And I think something that I should just say point blank is, a lot of folks ask Voyurl and me, what are you guys going to do with all this data? Oh my goodness, you're just going to take all this data and sell it. And in fact, we built this to precisely not do that. We will never, ever take your data, like stack it on a thumb drive and meet some brand in a back alley and be like, here, buy this thumb drive with all this data for all this money. We actually built this to try to obliterate that practice. It doesn't quite happen like that anyways, but it was an analogy.
There's no back alleys. I just want to let everybody know there's no back alleys.
But let it be known that there are volumes of user data being bought and sold all the time, and we just don't want to get into that market unless the user's in that market, is essentially how it boils down for us. So the consumer benefits are that clearly everybody knows there's value in this data. They behave like they do. They react like there is value. I think it's hard for people to pinpoint what exactly that value is and how to leverage it. We know that Google makes tons and tons of money hand over fist with behavioral targeting for search ads, and so when we see that as users, we understand how great the value is. But as users, we're not given the tools or the means to actually tap into that value as Google has created. So what Voyurl intends to do is actually provide the platform that allows users to tap into that value directly. So imagine if now Google's not brokering this value, but you're allowed to broker this value against yourself, against the volume of your data, against the volume of all of your behavior. It's all compiled, it's all yours. You can control the ebb and flow of it and the permissions to who gets to see it and who doesn't. And when you can do that, there's a lot of negotiating power that you have. And so as a user, you begin to leverage all of this value that's sort of latently been sitting in your data exhaust, stuff you generate all day long browsing around the web. And so our goal is to wrap all of that up for you, centralize it for you, keep it in a vault for you, and allow you to, I guess, barter with it at some point.
So one day, potentially, you could connect a consumer directly with a brand, maybe?
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
And so there's no shady middleman.
Okay. So we're all aware of a lot of internet privacy laws that are in the news lately. There's a group called Consumer Watchdog that's fighting really hard for a do not track me internet privacy law that would make it a little bit more easier and a little bit more transparent for consumers to opt out of being tracked. Yeah. How do you think Voyurl fits into this overall equation of the privacy laws and this specific group going for this opt-out?
I think it fits in because you don't necessarily have to opt out. People want to opt out because they're not given any control. There's a really, really smart and genius woman named Dana Boyd. And she has posted a few different papers on this online and blog posts, and she's given talks about this. But essentially, she's echoed something that I've never been smart enough to express as well as she has, which is to say that privacy is actually an outcome. It's an outcome of a few things. And those few things are agency and control. So if a user doesn't have agency, if they're not actually felt empowered to be themselves in a certain way, then they lose control. And then if they certainly don't have any control, they don't say where this data is going or where it's not, then they really have nothing to gain. And so their privacy is suddenly non-existent because they don't have agency and they don't have control. And as a result, that's what's making people want to opt out. They don't have agency and they don't have control. But that also means that there hasn't been a tool or a platform that's been introduced into the market that gives them those two things, that would enable them to actually protect their privacy. So as a result, I think that Voyurl actually provides a different option, which is to say there's no need to opt out. There's actually a way for everybody to gain from this, especially the consumer. And so if you actually opt in, there's a better alternative where you get your agency and you get your control, which means you get your privacy, and subsequently we actually get you value. There's ways for us to help you leverage that value in your data. So while the Do Not Track bill allows people to get smarter about what's happening online, because clearly there's a PR agenda and they're creating awareness about what's happening. So, I mean, I think that's great for everybody at large because we're all learning about what's going on. But we're also, we also need to be aware of there's two sides of this coin. You can opt out or you can opt in. And so while everyone's getting smarter, I want Voyurl to be able to provide an option that says you don't have to sort of take yourself out of the whole equation. You don't have to just turn your back on it. You don't have to leave. You don't have to be nervous or apprehensive. You can actually go a little deeper and get full control and really start to maximize the value that's going on.
Well, I think it's great because I don't think anybody up until now has really thought about opting in. So I really do think it changes the conversation. And speaking of opting in, how can people opt in? What do we need to do to become a part of Voyurl?
Oh, okay, sure. Good question. I should always be thinking about that. So if you go to www.voyurl.com/beta, you'll land on an unlocked landing page. So we're in private beta right now. And you'll just see a big, sign up for Voyurl button sitting on the right-hand side of your screen. Just click that and you can get started and join, as soon as you type in the URL.
Thank you so much, Adam. And thanks so much for talking about this today. I really think it shifts the paradigm in the conversation around internet privacy laws, and people need to know about it. So thanks for being here.
I'm certainly biased, but I agree wholeheartedly. And thank you very much, Jordan. I really appreciate being here, too.
And once again, that's voyurl.com/beta.
Correct.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
You got it.